Your will is done on earth as it is in heaven. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Good afternoon. As everyone is taking their seats, please make sure that your phones are silenced. Welcome to this morning's Appropriations Committee. At this time, we are going to start with the reasonable opportunity to be heard. I don't have any speaker cards, but if you would like to address this body, now is your opportunity. You'll have 2 minutes. Please approach the podium and present us with your name and your address. Seeing none, we will now close the reasonable opportunity to be heard. To the attorneys, are there any amendments or changes to this morning's agenda?
Madam Chair, the items for this committee's consideration are those listed in the final printed agenda, as well as the additions of items 3L, 3M, and 3N, which we're including in the changes memo. There are also Scrivener's errors to item 3D, and as well, Commissioner McGee has asked to be listed as a co-sponsor on item 3C and a prime sponsor of item 3G. With that, a motion to set the agenda is in order.
It's been moved. It's been seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Anyone wish to be recorded, no. Our agenda for this morning's hearing is now set. We have a number of presentations that we will take up this morning. But before the presentations, I'd like to open the public hearing on our public hearing item, which is item 1G1, if I am not mistaken, a resolution regarding our transportation department. If our attorneys can please read our public hearing item. We are opening public hearing on item 1G1.
Item 1G1 is a resolution authorizing Miami-Dade County Department of Transportation and Public Works to implement major service changes to the bus network on or after July 21st, 2025. It's a public hearing item.
Any speakers on item 1G1? Now is your opportunity. Seeing none, public hearing on item 1G1 is closed. The sponsor of item 1G1 is present. Would you like to introduce your item?
This is actually a department item. We just tried to get it on a little quicker, so I assume sponsorship. But colleagues, what's exciting about this lineup, it's the first time we're seeing that we will be planning for the opening of the South Dade Corridor in the lineup with our union. So thanks.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. I would actually like for our department director to approach, because in addition of this item truly being exciting, the item alludes to savings, but doesn't specifically specify those savings. And so to the director, anytime that there is savings being realized by our department or by our board, I'd like to take the opportunity to highlight that and highlight that good work. So if you don't mind, please introducing the savings that this item will yield for our county.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Through the Chairwoman, Joseph Diaz, Interim Director of the Department of Transportation and Public Works. As you correctly state, this lineup change or this introduction of these new services actually does produce a savings. The additional service that we're bringing in, as the sponsor correctly points out, is the addition of the South Corridor BRT, which it's exciting to us because it's the first quarter of the SMART program that would go into effect. The cost for operation of that is funded through the half-cent transit surtax, thus presenting no additional cost to the general fund. In terms of the transit operating fund costs, we do experience a savings through prior lineups. We have realized a savings of $5.3 million. With the changes that we're introducing with Metrolink, which we are taking some routes that are now on-demand service and taking them into fixed routes based on the success of those routes. That has a cost of $2 million. So therefore, the savings in this is $3.3 million towards operating. So this is a positive news towards this service and lineup change.
Thank you so much. And when I review the item, it does say major change to our network, which reminded me of the Better Bus Network. But this corridor wasn't included in the Better Bus Network. I just wanted to clarify that for the record. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you so much, Director. Any of my colleagues wish to speak on 1G1? Seeing no further unreadiness, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
4.
Commissioner Steinberg, Vice Chairman Cabrera, Chairwoman Cohen Higgins,
4.
4 members. Excuse me. Motion passes 4-0.
Congratulations to the sponsor and to the department. I would like to take up item 3E because our amazing supervisor of elections has joined us this morning, and I wanted to highlight 3E because it is a no bid contract award. But I would like for either our supervisor or a representative of her department to explain why. I think it's important that any time that we have a no bid contract situation on election equipment, that we make a clear articulation on the record of why it is that the no bid is being presented and why essentially under the factual circumstances that we currently sit under, it's essentially required. So welcome, very familiar face and very friendly face. Mr. Orn, you are certainly recognized. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And for the record, Orrin Rosenthal, General Counsel, the Miami-Dade County Supervisor of Elections, 2700 Northwest 87th Avenue in Doral, Florida. Thank you for the question, Madam Chairman. The reason why that finding is required to be made is because of state law. State law requires the board to certify there's but one vendor who can provide this for the county to provide to the supervisor of elections. In this case, there is but one vendor because we have been using ES&S systems since 2007, when we, at least 2007, when we originally purchased these in-person voting equipment. And we are only replacing the day of voting in-person voting equipment. We're not replacing the rest of our system, so it would be impossible for us to have 2 different systems operating at the same time. At the same token, we're also receiving a number of cost savings by being able to churn on our old systems and reuse things like modems. And in addition, there are but 2 systems within the state that have been certified. So we could not go to the new system, and as a result, this is the only system that Miami-Dade County can use at this time, and that's why we're asking this board to make the decision to purchase from ES&S and to certify that it is but the sole source for the purchase of this equipment.
Thank you for that explanation. Do any of my colleagues have any comments or discussion on item 3E? Commissioner Gonzalez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so this, you mentioned that Miami-Dade County can only purchase this particular system. Can you explain what the reason for that is?
So currently, we use ES&S throughout the day of voting equipment for the high-speed scanners for vote-by-mail voting, also for disabled voting through the Express Vote, and we also use their back-end software. The vote-by-mail voting system, the high-speed scanners, the Express Vote, the back-end software, all of those things do not need to be replaced. And so we're not spending the extra money. We're not asking this board to spend the extra money to replace those things. If we were to go to a different service in order to replace the in-day voting equipment, we'd need to replace everything.
Got it. Got it. And how do these upgrades help with election integrity?
Of course. So I think in 2 ways. The first is because we originally bought this equipment in 2007. It's electronic equipment. You wouldn't be using 20-year-old electronics in your daily life or for anything important. You don't want to be using 20-year-old electronics for what I consider to be one of the most important functions of government, which is elections. In addition, the new equipment has new features, and they'll be able to run, according to the vendor, enhanced security systems and enhanced security software within the new system, the DS300s instead of the DS200s.
And can you explain the difference between the DS300s and the DS200s?
It's an upgrade. It's the difference between the old Intel chip 1 and the Intel chip 5 or 7.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much. I have no further questions. Just would like to recognize our amazing supervisor of elections, Alina, in the crowd.
Thank you, Commissioner Gonzalez. Any further comment or questions on item 3E? Seeing none, I'm happy to move item 3E. It's been seconded by Commissioner Steinberg. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Anyone wish to be recorded no on item 3E? 3E carries. Congratulations to our supervisor of elections. We are now going to go into our presentation, starting with 1E1, which is the payroll presentation that Commissioner Gonzalez requested. I have 10 minutes time allotted, but would absolutely adore if you could do it in under 7. Is that agreeable to you, Chief?
I will try to talk as fast as our county attorney, Jerry, does.
Chief, you are recognized, and if we can put 7 minutes on the clock. Thank you again, Chief.
Good morning. I am Chief Carla Denise Armbruster Edwards, overseeing administration for the Office of the Mayor. The portfolio that I oversee includes our Internal Compliance Department, our Human Resources and Internal Services Department, which we affectionately call PIOD. As well as many others. And so what I wanted to do today was give you a little background on what happened in 2023. And then I want to move into the adjustments that we've made as a result of what happened, and then talk to you about something that's still happening right now. So on the background, I just want to share for those who are not familiar that in August of 2023, payroll errors were discovered impacting not only several employees, but several of our county commissioners and our clerk. That payroll error was a result of the system not being fully implemented and used at its full capacity. The auditing functions were not working at that time. Some of our processes and rules were not in place at that time. The mayor, our esteemed mayor, Levine Cava, asked for the Internal Compliance Department, which used to be called the Audit and Management Services Department, to immediately begin an audit of the system, the processes, and the failure. That happened in August of 2023. The audit report was finalized in November of 2023. They looked at and verified the validity and accuracy of manual payroll adjustments. They analyzed payroll balances whereby modifications needed to be made for what we call overpayments. And then they determined which HR processes needed to be improved, some even eliminated or changed. I do want to just take one pause before I get to the stoplight report to tell you what we've done subsequent to that audit, because there is some confusion. Our payroll system and our processing system has overpayments and underpayments on a regular basis. It is a part of the way in which we work and operate. We actually pay people in a way, I would say, prospectively. Folks put in on their time on a Wednesday, estimating or guesstimating what they're going to do Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Then we run around and try to adjust that in time for checks to be cut the following Wednesday. It is a habitual practice of having overpayments and underpayments. Someone may say, I'm going to work on Wednesday, and then they don't work on Wednesday, and then we have to go and adjust, meaning maybe take that money back. So that's normal. What happened in August of 2023 was not normal. What happened was some of the county commissioners were overpaid as a result of a edit or a function not being turned on or turned off as it should have been. So those adjustments were a combination of two things: system error and human error. So what we had to do once we got the results of that audit was go back and figure out what was a system error and what caused us to have human error. And so we created a stoplight report to track the 40 issues that were identified in the audit. And today, 39, if I stand corrected, my team will help, of those things have been resolved. I put them in buckets because I did not want to bore you with all 40 issues. And the big buckets were, one, security access was not completed and was not adhered to. So we have improved that, we have fixed that, we have limited the security access. Standard operating procedures were not in place. So we have created SOPs, and the team has been trained and are following those SOPs. We put in system triggers and exception reports so that immediately someone could see when something was in error and needed to be fixed, as opposed to finding out weeks or if not months later. And then we changed the pay period end date. We actually are in the process of changing the pay period end dates so that the time work is actually the time paid. This is a big one. That's why it's in yellow, because it's not something that can be done overnight. And we are continuing to do PeopleSoft system updates. The system that we have, which is run on Oracle, it's called PeopleSoft, an enterprise resource management tool, is old. The version in which we adopted is not the most recent version, so we're constantly updating the system. That yellow means that every time we update the system, there's a risk, and so we're monitoring that risk. What's in red is something that I feel like we still need resources and support to continue, which is continuous training and process improvement. Since the system was put in place Madam Commissioner, we've been so busy fixing things, implementing things, we haven't taken the step back to figure out how to improve things. And it's not just improving the system, it's improving the way we work. We need to improve the way we work. So with that said, we're at our current state. Our current state is that the system is stable. However, we are currently running 5 payrolls today, where we were only running 1 payroll at that time. And so that increases the risk, right? The team is doing incredible work 24/7. So for me, the current state isn't tenable, not because of the system, but because of the impact it has on our people. So we absolutely need to address that, which is why I had that in red in the last slide. Last week, maybe it's been 2 weeks now, we had another issue with our system that resulted in underpayments, which the team is addressing, and that we have identified as a human error, but it was a human error because our system didn't have the exact capacity that it needed, given the number of changes that occur on a weekly basis, if not daily basis, based on the processes we have in place for payroll. So we will be changing the payroll payment process so that it is actually retrospective instead of prospective, so that we don't have folks going in to adjust their timesheets every week. When you have 2,000, 3,000 out of 33,000 people adjusting their timesheets on a weekly basis, it creates delays. It creates errors. And so we need to change our processes and engage the clerk, comptroller, I believe he has a representative here, to help us do the next audit and review to ensure we didn't miss anything in the initial audit that was done in 2023. And so I think I can end there, and I have my team here if there are any questions.
Thank you for that presentation, Chief. To the requesting Commissioner, Commissioner Gonzalez, you are recognized.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and to Carla Denise and the team and the administration, thank you for putting this together. You know, I think it says a lot about where you guys are at now as opposed to where we were before. I think it says a lot about your character in that, you know, everybody in Miami-Dade County is trying to do their absolute best. And sometimes when we make mistakes, we got to look at those mistakes and figure out how to fix it. So I do appreciate that. My first question is, you did mention that this affected commissioners, but this affects all county employees, not just county commissioners, correct?
Correct.
Or county commission staff.
Correct.
I did want to ask a question on the front page of the memo. So I'm looking at page 1, and towards the middle of the page, it says a more in-depth follow-up review of HCM is planned to cover all aspects of employee compensation and benefits, including a more detailed analysis and assessment of payroll adjustments, current HR business processes and procedures to identify internal deficiencies and opportunities for improvement. When exactly is this planned for?
And if the clerk's office, Barbara, would like to come up and speak, we plan to do that in conjunction with our new partner.
Awesome.
And I'll have her introduce herself.
Good morning, Chairwoman and members of the committee. This is Barbara Galvez with the Office of the Clerk and Controller.
Someone who needs no introduction. You are very missed.
As Dr. Edwards mentioned, the clerk does and continues to monitor the payroll process in the county. We understand that what happened this last pay cycle, and some of you were aware, we tried to communicate with all of you what occurred to ensure that you knew that we were going to correct the problem and people were going to be paid the appropriate amount that was required based on their hours worked.
And I'm sorry to cut you off, Barbara, but
Sure.
are you talking about 2023 or are you talking about last pay cycle, what happened right now?
Last pay cycle. And I will say, the administration, the team has done an amazing job in addressing and continue to address all of the issues that were brought forward as part of that 23 audit. And because of the complexity of our payroll process, because of all of the components of pay that we have as a result of our collective bargaining agreements, this is something that we continuously have to be looking at. Unfortunately, it just takes a lot of time. Many times you have staff that are working into the early morning hours and sometimes even not sleeping at all, to be able to make sure paychecks get out when they need to come out.
Ms. Galvez, this is what I'm a little bit concerned about, right?
Right.
Now that you bring this up, do you, and I know the clerk's office is different than than the county, but do you folks have enough people? Like, is there enough people looking at this? And do we need to hire more people? Because it's costing us more money to make mistakes.
So again, as Dr. Edwards mentioned, there is a human component and a system component. And so the clerk has requested and has already scheduled for this Friday a meeting with the county administration as well as with Oracle, which is the system support partner that we have, to look at what are the things that we need to do from an infrastructure perspective that could help streamline the way we process the payroll, but also is asking for outside of the box solutions, similar to what Dr. Edwards mentioned, is moving our pay date cycle maybe by a week to be able to give staff more time to be able to look at what's been reported and correct any errors that occur prior to a check being issued.
Okay, and how would that affect the paychecks of Miami-Dade County employees?
At this time, we're looking at how that would work. We're trying to figure out a way, because it will require also buy-in from our union. We are affecting how that would happen, and so we're looking at that schedule to see what would be the most appropriate time to do it and how to do it so there is no fiscal impact to the employee.
Got it.
Okay?
So-
As far as the resources required to do this work, which is the question you had asked, we do have teams both on the county side and on the clerk side. We are hiring more staff on the audit side for our office. As you know, we just recently acquired that, and we've been trying to hire folks. It's unfortunate, but there's a lot of competition in that area, and so bringing in good people is a bit cumbersome and has proved to be a challenge. But we are engaging and putting out actually an RFP to acquire some consulting work to help us accomplish what we want to do with the payroll audits. It is, and the clerk has already indicated that he wants that to be a part of the annual audit plan for our chief auditor. He wants to make sure that we are constantly looking at what we do in this process and how we can make it better. We will always be working with our partners on the county side because it requires both sides to make this happen. And so we will be engaging both Ophelia and her team, the folks that currently support Informs, as well as the people in ITD.
So I guess we may not be able to have a specific date, but is there like a broad range as to when we can expect the follow-up that's mentioned here, the more in-depth follow-up?
Commissioner, let me answer that question. I have asked the team to make sure that every 6 months I get a report on what has happened per the August 2023. So the stoplight report I referenced, I get on a regular basis. We are actually actively engaging the clerk's office to do a full comprehensive audit, maybe putting aside what we knew before to make sure there's nothing that we missed. And so that engagement is in the process of occurring. So we can commit to making sure that we have something in place within the next 6 months.
That's great. That's great. And I appreciate your leadership on this. My next question is specific to page 4 in the memo. And it says AMS selected a sample of transactions that were identified as overpayments. And they found that more than 4,000 county employees had overpayments totaling $3.2 million. And so my question is this the total number indefinite, or is this only a number looking at a sample that was selected? Madam Chair, through you.
Ophelia Tamayo, Director of Internal Compliance Department. So the report that we issued on page 4, Commissioner, and thank you again for your support. It was great meeting you. I apologize for your error. On page 4, what we reference is that at the time when we pulled the information as of 2022, the report that we pulled, there were actually already 4,000 county employees that had overpayments identified for a total of $3.2 million. And on page 8, if you look at page 8, that table 2 is a breakdown by department of those individuals who at that time had overpayments that were being collected by the county.
Got it. And so that is the total amount.
At that time.
That
but
is
it changed
everybody in the county at that time.
At that time.
That's not just a selected small
Exactly.
focus.
If you look at page 6, on page 6 there, we worked with the HR department at the time to identify the earning codes which would generate underpayments or overpayments. And so from that, we did select a listing of 265,000 payroll transactions at that time when we pulled that report, and then we picked a sample. And based on that sample, that's when we determined that there were system errors being done as well as human errors. And that was a result. And so if you look at Schedule 2, that is the result of our testing and the findings we had at that time.
Okay, and then it states that the HCM module is outdated as it has not been updated since its launch in June 2022. And I know that we're looking, backwards in time, right? So has it been updated since we last reviewed this?
And I think that's what Barbara Galvez was alluding to. So at the time that the system was implemented, we adopted a version at that time. So it was almost like, this is what we're going to do.
Right.
So the systems, like any systems, like your iPhone, they get updates regularly, right? So there have been updates to the system since then. We have already put a project in place that is going to kick off in April where we're going to update the system to bring it to current. However, as these updates come out, we have, as a team, selected the key updates within there. Like it's almost like a menu item. You can bring in certain functions or certain security features that get implemented at that time. So we've been doing that as already systematic approach, but we are going to take a look at the whole updates and bring that up to date.
Got it. So you're actively working to update. We probably don't have all of the updates yet, but you're actively working to get those updates.
Exactly, yes.
Got it. Now, AMS makes about 40 findings and recommendations. Out of all of those findings and recommendations, right, for the ones that require an action, how advanced are we in following the recommendations, right? Because the whole point of this is, looking at what we did wrong and then fixing it. So how advanced are we in making sure that those recommendations are implemented?
From the 40 recommendations, and it's what Chief Edwards was talking about, the department worked with us and did periodic action item updates that were provided to Chief Edwards and to ourselves as well. So of those items, it's what we showed in the stoplight report. The majority have been done. The ones that are pending are what we just talked about, changing the time to worked to paid, that 1 week kind of gap to help the team not have to do all these adjustments in a 24-hour basis. And then also the updates to the system that we just talked about. So those are ongoing, as well as training. We feel too that we should do more training as a whole county. So
I mean, I agree. I agree. We definitely need more training, Ms. Galvez was alluding to the fact that, we might need more people, right? So I guess my next question is number one, how can the commission help with these efforts, right? And then number two, Chief was alluding to the fact that every 6 months we're going to be looking at this to make sure that we don't have any issues, right? Do we have the manpower for that? And if we're going to be doing that, how can we include the county commissioner or perhaps the county commission auditor just to make sure that we have checks and balances?
So I would like to take that, if you don't mind, Commissioner, through the chair.
Absolutely, Chief.
So-
Madam Chair?
One of the reasons organizations implement technology is so they can modernize and optimize their work processes. And in some cases, that means you don't need more people, you just need people to do different work. We don't necessarily need more people, we need people to work differently. They need to work with the system and allow the system to do things that we used to do manually. We are in this situation because we tried to make the system do things the way we've always done them,
And that's unacceptable.
as
And
opposed
I'm
to
glad-
taking the system and then changing how we work.
And
So
I'm
when I
glad-
had that big red, that is, we must change how we work.
And I'm glad you're saying that.
Barbara Galvez spoke very eloquently to that. It is not going to be easy. We have numerous collective bargaining agreements. We have an incredible history, and we have a way in which we've done things prior to computers, technology. I mean, we still have fax machines running. So our goal, under the leadership that we have now, this board and our mayor, is to modernize, simplify, and make things easier and more efficient. This is a first step in that, adopting an ERP. It has been hard, but it's not because the system is bad. It's because we absolutely need to have the muscle memory, the bench strength, and the courage to change the way we work. So we're on it. No new people, but I need people to work differently. The other thing you can help us with is that it's not cheap and it's not free to maintain a technology system, right? Particularly one that is a system that's operated on licenses, right? Constant updates and upgrades. So there is a possibility, if not a strong probability, we'll have to come back to this board to extend our contract with Accenture or to improve or increase the licenses and the agreements that we have so that we can get to the most modern version that Oracle has pushed out to the universe. So I would anticipate that happening. I'm having the team do the analysis now on the financial implications. But as you know, Madam Chair, running the Appropriations Committee and our esteemed colleague, Commissioner Bermudez, everything we want to add, our team's going to have to say what we're going to stop doing. So we will come back with you what we need to add, but we will also come with you respectfully with what we might have to stop doing if we want to do this instead.
And I'm honestly glad that you put that on the record. And like I said, I can't stress this enough. I appreciate your leadership, and I appreciate, the clerk's leadership on this as well, because, one thing is bringing in new technology to make our life easier. But then another thing is, if folks don't want to do their job, that is a big problem. And we have, some of the greatest people in Miami-Dade County working right here that have the privilege and the honor to work for the residents of Miami-Dade County, and the great public servants that work in Miami-Dade County, making sure that this runs, right? And the whole point of this audit was because, listen, I spoke to a lot of folks, right? And Barb, Ms. Galvez and I, we had many conversations. I mean, I talked to a guy who got paid, he got overpaid $50 every paycheck, had no idea, for 20 years. And then one day he gets a letter, gets called up to HR, and he's got to pay back almost $100,000. This guy made $45,000 a year. Like, these things can't happen, right? And if they're happening because we're trying to be better, bringing in new systems, and folks are just not cooperating, right? That's not okay. And it starts with leadership. And I think that, ever since you've come on board, and we've had many conversations, and ever since I've seen, Ms. Galvez at the clerk's office, I think everybody is on top of this. And I want everybody to be on top of it because, like, for example, I own a law firm. I have many employees, right? If there is one paycheck, right, where my lawyers, paralegals, and staff don't get paid because somebody was trying to do them, that person is gone immediately. No questions asked. You don't play with people's money, right? So again, I appreciate you saying that, and I understand it's easier said than done. But folks need to understand that this is people's livelihood, right? That's what's at stake here. People are counting on this check. People are counting on these checks to survive, especially in times like now, right? Eggs are through the freaking roof. Gas is crazy. We want to make sure that folks get their paychecks, and they're working hard for those paychecks and counting on them. The last thing they want is for somebody to show up one day and say, hey, by the way, there was a mistake made. It's on you. We can't have that. So I do appreciate everything you folks are doing. Would love to stay involved with you as much as I can, just to make sure that you have everything you need to make sure that everybody's cooperating, working effectively, and folks' paychecks aren't affected.
Thank you.
I would like to add to what Dr. Edwards mentioned. We not only have to look at what we're doing from a system perspective, but as something that we need to make sure you understand, although we may do all kinds of things to try to improve the process from the mechanics, from the infrastructure, from whatever it may be, adding more resources or deploying resources differently, we will still potentially have a fiscal impact associated with what needs to happen from the union contract perspective. Please keep in mind that a lot of what happens in our payroll system today is because of what we have and how we calculate many of the components of pay that are associated with these contracts.
And look,
Although
count
the
on me.
intentions are wonderful that the administration wants to do all of these things. We may not be able to do all of the things we want because we do still need to have that buy-in from our unions to make sure that they are okay with what we're doing and how we're doing it. It may just be changing a calculation.
Yeah, no,
There
I
could
look,
be
I
a
couldn't agree
fiscal
with you
impact
more.
associated
I couldn't
with
agree with you more, and I think unions are there to help folks, right? And look, I'm a labor lawyer, right? Count on me with anything I can do, right? Count on me with anything I can do, because when you folks sit with them on the table, when you folks sit in a table with them, and you're talking about some of these changes that need to be implemented, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the union is the most. All the unions that I know, that I've talked to, right? PBA, for example, they're working hard for their members, right? And I think it is in their best benefit, and I know that they would agree, to make sure that they facilitate how these payments are made to these folks, right? So count on me, man. Anything I can do, like, I want to help, because we really need to solve this. I know that it's not easy, and I know you guys are trying, right? I want to help.
Thank you, Commissioner Gonzalez. And thank you for bringing the item, and thank you to the administration for the presentation. It's really unfortunate that Commissioner Gonzalez became the poster child for payroll deficiencies. But what he did was he took it and turned it into an opportunity to create improvements. And payroll is like our sidewalks and our streetlights. It is bare bones, basic services, right? And so I always say we have to get our house in order. And I look forward to the work that our commissioner is going to do, working with our department and with Chief Denise to make sure that these issues don't continue to happen in the future. So thank you very much for the presentation. Anything further on this presentation? Seeing none, thank you both so much. You can have a seat. Before we move on to the other presentation, are there any items on today's agenda that my colleagues would like to bifurcate or separate out for discussion? Okay, I have a few items that I'd like to bifurcate out, and then I'll entertain a motion to move the balance of the agenda, those items being 3A, 3B, 3D, 3F, and 3M. With those bifurcated, I'll entertain a motion for the balance of the agenda. It's been moved, it's been second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Anyone wish to be recorded, no. All other items carry. And to be clear, I support all of these items. I pulled all of them just to make a comment or to make a congratulatory remark. So with that, we'll move into our second presentation, which is item 1E2. If someone from ISD, or I believe David Codfelter, is going to approach and a presentation on behalf of ITD. Chief Denise, you are recognized.
Through the chair, Carla Denise Edwards again. I have two of my esteemed colleagues here to speak with us about the end of the year budget reconciliation report that I believe was on the last board meeting agenda. And it was asked that we describe or explain why some departments may have been over budget. In that, we also asked specifically for ITD to speak on what they are doing to try to be more efficient and to serve our departments and our community more broadly, as there's also an item directing us to work with McKinsey to improve our efficiency. So ITD would like to speak to what we're already doing. So I'll have David speak first, and then he can pass the baton to Margaret.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning, David. Welcome. I would like for you to spend 5 minutes on exactly what Chief just described regarding the ISD department. There was a $3 million shortfall identified in that department. And there were other departments that were over budget that we're going to discuss in future Appropriation Committee hearings. But we're going to start with ISD. And if you could explain why that $3 million deficiency is existing, and explain whether or not it's commonplace for our departments to either run overages or shortages. And the reason that we're highlighting this is because time and time again, we as a committee and we as a board are looking for efficiencies and trying to make sure that come budget season in just a few months, we are not in a position where we have to raise taxes on our residents. So we're watching these dollars very carefully, and departments should never be running over budget. And if they are, we're going to ask questions to make sure that we're here to help figure out ways that they cannot run over budget. So regarding ISD, I understand that it may be a matter of verbiage or words or an explanation regarding income that didn't come in that was anticipated. But in any event, if you could take just a few minutes to explain what's happening in ISD and why that $3 million gap currently exists.
Good morning. David Clodfelter, Office of Management and Budget. So just to give you an overview, this item is basically the technical entries and/or things that are required to balance the prior year and by fund, by activity, by operating capital budgets, and also all the grant-supported programs. Specifically for the general fund amendments that you mentioned for ISD, there's a total of $3 million that primarily were unrealized revenue in prior years. And based on GASB rules, those unrealized revenues that entry had to be cleared out. And again, some of these amendments for departments and/or funds or activities, they're not always a negative thing. This particular case, the revenue wasn't there. The general fund utilized savings in other areas to close that department and/or fund activity and balance that and close that out. So that's particularly revenue that they were charging or anticipate on charging other departments or other entities for the services they provide. Now, moving forward, we'll spend some time discussing with them primarily on trying to come up with a dedicated funding source for what they do, why they're doing it. Right now, they're utilizing primarily revenues that are generated from leases that they manage countywide, but that's basically what happened here, unrealized revenues in the tune of $3 million.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation. And the reason I pulled 3D, which is the budget amendments, is because of this discussion that we're having now, but also the mayor's memo that just came out on March 7th, where she challenged all department heads to do a 10% cut in each department, which I think is wonderful. But what happens in a situation where a department is running at a 3%, it's not 3%, a $3 million shortfall, and then there's a challenge to cut the budget by 10%? I mean, what are we expecting in the situation that we have right now? Like, how do those two work together?
So it's definitely complicated, but as right now I'm going through each budget submission for next year. Simultaneously, we're looking at where we are this year, if we're coming with meeting budget targets, based on possible things that will be coming to you for consideration, things that we may be challenged in other areas. We're putting together a revised plan for the current year. That basically is what we do all the time. That's what my office is responsible for, working with departments to do that.
Sure, but this year you're being asked specifically to cut budgets by 10%. Is there a deadline on that? Is that something that you think will actually be realized? Is that something that we're going to see in the budget proposal that's going to come before us for a vote in a couple of months?
Yes. The answer is yes. We're putting together. I can't tell you exactly what it will be specifically per department, if it's 10% per department, but I'm looking at what the mayor requested from each director to see what we're going to prioritize and what we're going to be adjusting, and that, of course, will be communicated to the board on how we do it. And again, the challenge is it's all based on the directors from the board and other challenges that we're having in other areas. If something we anticipated to cost X and it comes up at Y at a higher value, that is a process that we're constantly reviewing. So in PIOD, just like other departments, they're no different. We're going to be looking at everything they do and how they're funded to do it.
Thank you so much. Anyone else have any questions or comments on this presentation regarding ISD and item 3D?
Madam Chair?
Yes, you are recognized, Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think I thank you for bringing up the 10%. And when you answered that, Mr. Clodfelter, you did allude to the fact that you're not sure because you guys are prioritizing, right? So I like that. I like prioritizing, because my question initially when I looked at that is, I'm happy that we're figuring out how to cut, right? But why specifically 10%, right? Why not concentrate, like, for example, on necessities versus wants, right? Like, cutting from water and sewer 10% could be different than cutting from another department. So is there a specific method to the madness here? When we say we're just going to cut across the board, no matter who you are, we're going to cut 10%. Because I would, just out of curiosity think, maybe there's some departments that can take more than a 10% hit, right? And there's some departments that shouldn't take any hit. What's your opinion on that? I just want to have a conversation.
No, I agree with you. The mayor was being proactive. She's asking for 10, but like you said, some may be 5, some may be 2, some may be 10. So that's what we're looking at right now. And again, we will be communicating exactly what we will be adjusting for. And this also may include some of the programs. One of these line item, these one-off funded programs that we've been funding for several years, over the past 3 or 4 years. It may not relate directly to service being provided. That's what I'm trying to weed through right now.
That makes sense.
And propose to everyone, so it's not a direct service hit to everybody. And again, remember, constitutional offices, it changes the whole framework. So those large general funded activities, especially with the sheriff, are no longer under the county's umbrella. So 10% to, what was the Miami-Dade Police Department budget is a very large number that we're not able to even work with at this point.
Got it.
Anything further?
No further questions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cabrera, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And what I would say is, as you guys are working with McKinsey, obviously enterprise departments should be treated a little bit differently, right? In the sense that if you're paying a certain amount to have your trash collected, right? We want efficiencies, but your trash still has to be collected, right? Because you're paying, it's kind of a fee for service. So I would just say that make sure you guys take that into account as you go through these efficiencies and the 10% and all that stuff.
Thank you, Commissioner Cabrera. Commissioner Hardiman, welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. I will let you know your item 3A will be called up right after this presentation, but you're certainly recognized on this item.
Thank you. A question for you. The mayor asked for the 10% cuts. Are you required to go through the company that's McKinsey or something of that nature in order for those cuts to be implemented? Or are you trying to identify cuts so as to, when you save money in this budgetary process, you're not required to pay some of the savings to the company?
Yes. The answer is yes. Sorry.
Can you, yes, and
First
explain?
part was no.
So help explain that so it's clear, so I
I
understand.
mean, your question started off, are we required to go through McKinsey? No, that's not what the item said. And Commissioner, whatever is being proposed, whatever we're going through, I'm going to bring to you the most, efficient way, and every department and the administration is going to bring to you the most effective way of doing it too. We're not required to necessarily go through McKinsey so they get something out of this. This is part of what I do every day. This is part of what OMB does. Work with departments, figure out if there's a challenge, if someone's going over budget, and then we make adjustments. This is just part of, what we're going to be doing.
And Ms. Edwards, is that your understanding of things?
Absolutely correct. Our director said that very well. One of the reasons that we have Director Brisbane here is to share with you some of the work that has been underway to create operational efficiencies. So Director Clodfelter, and I think he deserves a round of applause, does an incredible job year over year to balance the budget. When we have all kinds of torpedoes and things happening throughout the course of the year that require us to change the budget. And he figures out how for it to be balanced, which is required by law, at the end of the year. I wish he could do my own household accounting because I have not figured that out yet. So we are not required to use anybody. This is our job. Our job is to make sure we are using the taxpayers' dollars to the maximum capacity to provide the necessary essential services that this community needs. We went through a period, and the chairwoman knows this because we spoke about it in the briefing, of prosperity as a result of COVID, right? It's a weird thing to say we were prosperous during COVID, but we were. Now we're in a period of austerity. We do not have the resources that we had to do the things that we were doing, and so we need to scale back, prioritize, and ensure that we're revenue generating, we're healthy, and we don't compromise the level of service that our customers, meaning the taxpayers and other community members, expect. So the 10% is an exercise. It's like if you were forced to cut back, what would you do? And it does apply to the enterprise departments, because one of the reasons enterprise departments are so great is that they can generate revenue that then we can use and apply for economic development and continued growth, right? But there are probably some things they could do smarter, easier, more efficiently. In the event there is nothing, then nothing will be done. In the event there is something, we want to make sure that the county and the mayor particularly gets full credit for that, and we're not paying a consultant to tell us something we already know.
Anything further, Commissioner Hardiman? Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you, Director. Thank you, Chief, and thank you, David Codfelter. And Commissioner Hardiman, to your point, when the McKinsey item was brought, you had expressed some very notable concerns regarding whether we were able to do that ourselves in-house. And you see that taking place now with the mandate from the mayor saying, go find me 10% of efficiencies where applicable. And I think that's wonderful. I think all hands on deck at a time like this is absolutely appropriate. And I appreciate the administration taking this as seriously as they are and pulling all of the triggers that we have at our disposal to make sure that we are running this government as lean and as efficient as possible. And I'll take it a step further, and I haven't spoken with you, Chief Denise, about this, but I do think that we should motivate our department directors. I really do. I think that there should be some sort of monetary incentive for those who are able to come and bring us budgets that are lean and that are efficient without laying off one employee. Let's incentivize our directors to find those efficiencies, because essentially it's creating more work for them. That's something we can talk about offline, maybe create a competition around it. I don't know, but I do want it to not be an exercise in futility. I will be looking at that budget through each department to see whether or not that 10% was met. I know my colleagues will be doing the same. And I think that hopefully there would be support in rewarding our directors that are able to meet or exceed that. I know it's not a mandate, it is a suggestion, but it's one that I would like for them to take very seriously. Commissioner Cabrera?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I know that there's some sort of program that exists because we get a report on if an employee finds some sort of efficiency, and I think they get a percentage of it, I believe, right? I've seen the report before in my email, but I don't exactly remember the specifics regarding the program.
Employee suggestion program.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. With nothing further, I'm happy to move 3D. Is there a second? It's been moved. I'm sorry?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
we do a roll call on 3D as it's an ordinance.
Yes. Madam Clerk, please call the roll on 3D.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
4.
Commissioner Steinberg, Vice Chairman Cabrera, Chairwoman Cohen-Higgins.
4.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. And we are going out of order. If ITD can hold for just a couple of minutes, we have a visiting commissioner present. That's Commissioner Hardiman, and I believe he is present, although he's welcome to stay during the balance of our hearing on item 3A. So we'll call up 3A. I know we have representatives from 3A. I don't know, Commissioner Hardiman, if you'd like to introduce your item, but there are certainly some comments that I'd like to make on the record regarding 3A. No, you don't want to introduce it. 3A is my understanding, and our Director of Housing, Director Baena, I know is present. And when I learned about this item and the sheer size of it, it's almost the development of an entire city. if I'm not mistaken, over 5,000 units, the vast majority of which will be affordable housing units. So it's an extraordinary project. I wanted to congratulate our director and the sponsor for bringing the item, but the item goes even further than that regarding the number of units that are going to be delivered to the community at an affordable rate. I had asked during our briefing whether or not any of those units would be made available for home ownership. And again, I would like for someone to approach. It can be a representative of the project. It could be the director. But since that briefing just yesterday, I was informed, because during the briefing it was said that, there's efforts to make a number of these units affordable home ownership, not just affordable rentals, but that there was tremendous efforts being made to have that opportunity available to the public. And since that briefing just yesterday afternoon, I received some additional information. So welcome, please introduce yourself and let us know what's going to be made available for home ownership in this tremendous project.
Absolutely, and thank you for the time. Jose Felix Diaz, on behalf of the Swirlo Group. Of the 5,700 housing units which will be developed here, 2,048 will be heavily subsidized workforce condo units, home ownership up to 140% AMI. And we have to work with the department and with the federal government to make sure that, we get title to it the way we need it in order for those home ownership units to be developed. But that is the goal. We believe in home ownership and are very supportive of what you're working on in the county.
Thank you. Thank you for that, and thank you for stating that on the record. It's tremendous that over 2,000 units are likely going to be made available for homeownership opportunities. That's going to make a huge impact on our entire county here in Miami-Dade. So thank you for that. And another notable portion of this item that I think it is worthy of a few moments is maybe it was a year ago or so, we were presented with a heat ordinance here in Miami-Dade County, and it did not pass at that time, but this particular private development company took it upon itself regarding this particular project to implement their own heat standards for their construction workers and everybody involved on the project. And I thought that was tremendous. If private enterprise wants to implement these policies for their workers, for their team members, I think it's tremendous. And this particular group has done that and gone above and beyond. So only compliments on this item. The sponsor doesn't sit on the committee, so I'm happy to move 3A. It's been moved. It's been second. Any further discussion or comment on 3A? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to be recorded no on 3A? 3A carries. Congratulations to the developer and to the sponsor. 3B, I'd like to pull. I pulled only to defer to no date certain. There's some budgetary items. This is in my district. And I'd like to defer item 3B. So I move to defer 3B. It's been seconded by Cabrera. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone wish to be recorded no on the deferral of 3B?
No. Madam Chair, if I could just make a quick comment.
Absolutely.
I would be remiss if I don't recognize our former Director of Housing, Mr. Liu.
Where is he?
He's in the back waving there. Incredible human being.
Welcome, Director Liu. Welcome, Director. Another familiar face that joined us at today's committee. Thank you for recognizing our former director. The next item I pulled was 3F. This is an incredible item in partnership between Port Miami and Miami International Airport, and I pulled it only also for congratulatory remarks and comments, because I know that this is a deal that has been worked on for years. My chief of staff, when he was at the airport, he apparently worked on this deal, so that's how many years it has been in the making. But aside from the amount of time that it has taken for this deal to come to fruition and the amazing work that has been put into it, this is a deal that is generating, and Chief Carla Denise had mentioned how our departments and all of us here in Miami-Dade County are not looking only for cost savings, but are looking for revenue generation opportunities. This is a tremendous one because it creates $318 million that is new revenue being generated for our county in this deal. Not that we were paying someone else to do it and now we're going to take it in-house. So there's no cost associated currently. This is entirely new revenue and funds being generated. And I just wanted to congratulate our Port Miami team and Miami International Airport on an incredible job. Well done. I don't know if Chief Morales or either of the directors want to say anything, but I really think that this is deserving of congratulatory remarks.
Through the chair, Jimmy Morales, Chief Operating Officer. Chairwoman, thank you to recognize it. This is one of those partnerships, not only two departments working together. This started in part with, I think, some federal funding that we received through the offices of Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart. This is as Chief Edwards indicated, enterprise departments that are investing in infrastructure to generate more revenue for the departments. Also, our economic engines. This is part of our economic competitiveness. This facility, which will treat, produce and things like that, and also provide additional refrigerated storage, just gives us another foot forward in the whole world of cargo and freight that comes to our community. So I think on behalf of the two departments, thank you for recognizing it. It is a great project and moving us forward in the right direction and making both the port and the airport much more competitive in the cargo business.
Thank you, Chief. I'm happy to move 3F. 3F has been moved. It's been seconded by Commissioner Gonzalez. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Anyone wish to be recorded no on 3F? 3F carries, and congratulations again to Port Miami and Miami International Airport. The final item I pulled was 3M. This is a absolutely necessary item regarding our water and sewer ocean outfall program, which is critically important to the health of our bay and to compliance, I believe, at both the state and federal level. I'm supportive of the item, but in light of the $57 million price tag associated with it, I do have a couple of questions. So I'm not sure if Chief Carla Denisi would like for me to direct the questions to you or to our interim director of WASD. But on the $57 million price tag associated, I just want to confirm that it's already budgeted, because this is a 4-year extension on existing contract holders that are doing great work on our compliance on the ocean outfall program. I just want to confirm that the $57 million in this ask has already been budgeted.
And through the chair, Chief Coley, my colleague, is here to speak to the item.
Welcome, Chief. You are
Madam Chairman.
recognized.
For the record, Roy Coley, Chief Utilities and Regulatory Services Officer. To your question, Madam Chairman, yes, the cost that's associated with this is in our current budget. It's part of our current work plan.
Thank you for answering that. And will the $57 million that's already budgeted affect our ratepayers in any way?
Madam Chair, this item in and of itself will not have a material impact on the rates. The projects that this item will be managing does impact our rates. When the Ocean Outfall Legislative Plan was developed back in 2013, just like the consent order of 30 years ago, when this body developed the plan and approved the projects, it was determined to pay as you go, meaning we would raise the money through revenue bonds when it is needed for the projects, and those revenue bonds will have an impact on the rates at that time.
Thank you for explaining that. Any further discussion on item 3N? Any unreadiness questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, Commissioner Gilbert moves 3M. It's been seconded by Commissioner Steinberg. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Anyone wish to be recorded no on 3M? 3M carries. Congratulations. Any further items on our list from the attorneys?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Oh, that's right. We have a
Discussion item.
presentation from our ITD department. And contextually, we are having a quick presentation by our ITD department because we wanted to give our department head an opportunity, again, regarding the comments that were made by my colleagues regarding the McKinsey item and the concerns that were expressed. We wanted an opportunity for the department to show their version of efficiencies that could be identified early. And then after McKinsey comes in and does their good work, we're going to compare and contrast and see, listen, were they actually able to provide us with a service or not? Is this something that we could actually do in-house and entirely on our own? So this will give you the opportunity, Madam Director, to showcase for us in just 5 minutes or less, if you will, what efficiencies or other items that you have identified as a department head before McKinsey comes in and does that audit work that they are about to start doing. So, Madam Director, you are recognized.
Good morning, Margaret Brisbane, Director ITD, and thank you very much for the opportunity of sharing this information. Just a brief overview of some of the things that are done in ITD so that we set the table in terms of who we are. ITD is a department of 900 IT professionals providing services across the county for several municipal government as well as our constitutional offices. So the technology includes infrastructure, hardware, software, applications, cybersecurity, and the administrative components of IT. The vision that we are operating under is to make sure that we are providing services to our residents really in an efficient and innovative manner so they can participate in all the services offered for county government. So let me just start by looking at the core priorities that run our IT department. Again, I think it's important to understand cybersecurity is what really keeps this county safe at all times. We have an area where we're looking at how we interact with our residents, meeting them where they are, and making sure that they have access to all the services offered. Digital government services is really a core component of the mayor's initiatives that says we really need to modernize and innovate so that we are prepared, not just for today, but for what lies ahead. Data science, we'll talk a little more about that, but this is where we are leveraging the data that Miami-Dade has, and we are data-rich, information poor. And so we need to figure out how to really leverage that to make us more efficient and effective in decision making for the county. As far as cloud services, we are looking at that as a means not only to provide capacity, but also disaster recovery for many of our systems that do not need to be on-premise. So when we have things like a hurricane, there's no interruption of services. And then from our infrastructure standpoint, that is the backbone of what we do here, to ensure that we have the capacity to carry traffic on our networks, to ensure that they're safe, and that we are providing the services needed, whether it is our 58th Street corridor expansion or the South Dade corridor, we are providing the network that's needed there. Let's talk about IT and the team that we have. We are here because we are looking at IT as a unified enterprise service. We provide services countywide from technology, thereby reducing the cost, providing standardization, eliminating duplication. That's what we really are aiming to do, thereby saving money. So I think we should look at where our opportunities are for efficiency and savings. And this is what we want to ensure is really clear, because this is an ongoing effort in ITD. It's not new. We're not just doing this. We have been doing this continuously. AI automation is one of the areas we're clearly focused on, because this is where we will have the opportunity to automate some of the routine things that we do. We have done some use cases within IT that has demonstrated significant savings in manpower hours. So if we can look at that across the county, I do believe we have some opportunities for greater savings, self-service, things that they have to speak to a person today to get an answer. AI will help us to automate some of that. Cybersecurity is the core of what we do. We have to protect the assets of Miami-Dade County, and we do that quite effectively. Legacy systems, we talked about where are the opportunities for savings. In a while, I'll show you how many applications we support in this county, but we're always looking for how we can retire legacy systems. We have over 1,200 applications we support today, and the analysis is how many of these are actively being used, do they add value? Do we have a disposition plan for these applications that says, when we went to Informs, we retired AdPix and Famous and multiple other smaller applications. We're doing that consistently. And also documenting any savings we may get by retiring hardware, software, or license when we do that. Where did 5 minutes go?
It went by quickly. It always does. Madam Director, how much more time do you think you will need?
I would, again, this really points out the areas where we are doing a lot of optimization, and the opportunities are endless. We continue to focus on that. I would just like to end with this area on data analytics that says, here is where we are truly leveraging the data we have in all these systems and across the county to really provide department directors with valuable information for decision making. And so where there is data, there is actionable intelligence. And I think as you take a look at these dashboards, you will see that we have done dashboards for our public housing department that really helps Director Baina on some of the decisions around occupancy, unit turnover, revenue. We have done the same at the port, where we are looking to assist Director Webb on managing the cargo revenue at the port. And I'll end with this last one that really looks at how we manage our HR talent and workforce within the county. We have the ability to see how many people in this county are eligible to retire by age or longevity, what jobs they have, so we can really plan for the future and ensure that we are upskilling our teams to meet the jobs of the future. So to end, we are doing everything we can to meet the mandate of the mayor and this board in terms of looking at the opportunities to save and provide efficiency. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Director. Any questions for our director on her presentation? Seeing none. Thank you, Madam Director. We'll see what McKinsey is able to identify. Your department was lucky recipient of the mayor's blessing for McKinsey to go in and do that work. And so we look forward to their findings. And again, this will give us an opportunity to compare and contrast whatever they find with the good work that you're already doing. So
Look
thank
forward
you.
to working with them.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Director. The final item on our agenda today is 1F1. It's just a discussion item regarding community redevelopment agencies. Our mayor, similar to the report that I had mentioned that she put out on March 7th, put out a report regarding community redevelopment agencies and their fiscal impact on our county. And so Chief Denise, as the Appropriations Committee, these are very large numbers. We have over $100 million out of our general fund annually going into these CRAs, and those are only the non-municipal CRAs. If you include the municipal CRAs, that number is significantly higher, it's my understanding. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity to speak on those CRAs rather briefly, talk about the numbers, and then I have a quick question after your very brief presentation on CRAs.
Through the chair. I'm happy to speak, and I'll be very, very brief. Several weeks ago, as we were executing on the mayor's WISE 305, the team and I met and we discussed all the opportunities that we have. One of them is to make sure we look at every expenditure with a fine-tooth comb. The CRAs, which the mayor is committed to, community redevelopment is essential. This is why Miami is so great. People come to Miami-Dade because we invest in our communities. There's not those like communities where people don't do that. We actually do that. The CRAs have helped. We have invested over $408 million over the course of the CRA history in the last 5 years. I think there are about 15 CRAs that are actually in effect. What I've asked the team to do is to ensure that any proposals for expansion or new CRAs pass what I call kind of the smell test. What is the ROI? Where and how will those dollars be invested so that the return on the community is as broad as possible? It's one thing to invest in a particular zip code. It's another thing to invest in Miami-Dade County. And so given that we're in this period of austerity, I want to make sure as this board makes decisions, they have the information to understand and appreciate how every investment is in Miami-Dade County. So that was my ask of Director Claude Felter. It is consistent with our desire to continue to grow, to have economic development, and to ensure if dollars are being placed into this particular bucket, that they are used at their maximum potential and fully optimized for the benefit of our community. And so that's the report. It's not really a report. It was a directive to Director Claude Felter to ensure anything that he brings to the mayor's desk, we have enabled to show this board the return on investment, the way those dollars will expand and grow and continue to benefit this incredible community that we have the pleasure of living in.
And cost neutrality, correct?
Absolutely. Cost neutrality, through the chair, Madam Chairwoman. I do think it's really important to understand how CRAs work, and it's actually quite complex. I think I could probably get a PhD in it after the 2 years I've been here. But what we do is we move money from point A to point B. So money is generated, right, through our taxes, and then that money is used to this board's pleasure. When you have a CRA, those dollars go to the CRA, and the CRA determines, thus the budgets that you all approve, what the best use of those resources are, with the very intentionality of addressing blight, underdevelopment, infrastructure, things that a community needs in order for it to be viable. And that has been a commitment of this mayor, which is making sure no community is left behind. So it's a redistribution of resources. And then again, budget neutral would mean that when that redistribution of resources goes from the general fund or wherever it is, TIF, to the CRA, that this community can see the benefit and the value of that dollar.
Thank you, Chief. Denise, any further discussion or comments? Yes, Commissioner Hardiman, you are recognized.
The CRA has been, one of my proud moments, I think, in serving in government, because, for instance, the CRA that I led, which is the Southeast Overtown Park West CRA, which they have representation here today. We've made just a tremendous about face, and you can tell that just by driving through the neighborhood. I'm doggish about defending CRAs. We need the defense of them throughout the state, but we especially need the defense of them here. Miami-Dade County hasn't always been very friendly to CRAs since the CRAs were created by statute. I mean, there have always been those who have tried to eliminate the CRAs or weaken their power. Certainly, Miami-Dade County has, anytime a CRA has come, has always advocated for shortening the life of CRAs, and also and even taking dollars from the CRA if life for it was being extended. It was a way of just trying to add to the coffers of Miami-Dade County. One thing I will say, when you describe the redistribution, one thing that we should realize is that CRAs and the money that they accumulate in their fund, they're taking from the area in which the tax increment is generated. Right. I'm not, like, for instance, so I'm not taking from Coral Gables to give to Overtown. Coral Gables, Overtown. But what you are taking it from is from projects in Overtown to reinvest into Overtown. And I think, we're now just getting to the glory days of what those CRAs are able to accomplish. So, for instance, in the Overtown one, when I first started, we didn't have any major redevelopment. There weren't new structures. It was maybe one new housing development, an affordable housing development was there. But now, when we created this $90 million TIF agreement with Miami World Center is slated to invest nearly $6 billion in the area. And it's those dollars part of those dollars that we're able to use to reinvest in the places where you can't get that sort of investment. And I'm saying this, and I'm closing to say, what the caution that I have about the mayor's memo is the term maximizing. Maximizing is a very heavy statement. And the reason I want to bring caution to it is because in the area that is Park West, where this $6 billion of investment is going into to the area, there are very, very tall buildings, market rate, Some have some restrictions as far as the rent structure. You have one of the largest restaurant groups, Maple and Ash, now opening up in a few, maybe about a month. It's a very successful steakhouse. I mean, you have retail there. You have the almost like the jewel of the eye of Apple has just now opened up a store. And it's a major investment there. Lots of people, lots of density. That's perfect for that space. But then when you start to look at the western part of Overtown, maximizing on a lot where we're interested in keeping Overtown to feel like a village and not a major metropolitan area is not the best idea. So yes, if we were building a building with 500 units in Park West, it's befitting. But a building with 500 units just neighboring Spring Garden at the edge of Overtown at its introduction is not appropriate. And so I just said it to say, as we continue to think through these things, when these items come up, the little nuances in the word maximizing that we should really think about. Is it appropriate for the place? Is it appropriate for the space? Is it appropriate for what is being planned in that area? Because certainly there will be items where you can build another 200 units, but when you see where it's being placed by, you wouldn't build another 200 units. And we would still have a net increase of affordable housing and housing that is market rate to introduce new money to the area. So that's why I came out. I wanted to put those comments on the record.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardiman, and thank you for your leadership and your work on CRAs. I know it's been tremendous, and we are all now visiting areas that we didn't visit 10 years ago, right, to buy Apple and all of these amazing corporate brands that are moving into these areas, and they're directly attributed to those CRAs, and I thank you for your leadership and your work on that. Anything further on 1F1? Seeing none. I am going to bring up a motion to reconsider item 3B that I deferred to no date certain. So to the attorneys, can I bring back item 3B for a deferral to our next committee meeting? And if I can, how do I go about doing that?
Madam Chair, under the board's rules for committee actions, a motion for reconsideration is in order as long as it's made at the same meeting. So since we're at the same meeting, that would be appropriate at this time.
I move to reconsider item 3B.
Second.
It's been moved, it's been second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to be recorded no. 3B is back before the board. Just contextually, colleagues, I deferred this item. This is the Naranja Lakes CRA. I deferred the item because there is a named executive director that I have been trying to meet with for time and time again that has not afforded me the opportunity to bless myself and my office with her presence. I would like to meet with the executive director. I don't think that that's a onerous ask, and I'd like for her to respond to our request to do exactly that as the executive director of a CRA within District 8 that I have the pleasure of sharing with the District 9 commissioner. I know that she's available and accessible. In fact, she came here and gave testimony when the District 9 commissioner requested her to do so. We're very invested in the work that our CRAs are doing in our community, and a request to meet with the executive director is not a tall order. And so between now and our next committee hearing, I'm hoping that she will acquiesce to that simple request, and hopefully I can have my colleagues' support in a deferral for one meeting. So I move to defer the item to our next Appropriations Committee hearing. Thank you. It's been moved. It's been second. Any discussion? Commissioner McGee, welcome. You are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the reconsideration. I spoke with the executive director. She's actually in Washington, D.C. I do believe when your office reached out to her, she had already previously had those meetings set up in D.C. She's actually in Congress as we speak, but she reassured me when she gets back, they'll reach out to you and get some things set up.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. Looking forward to it. So it's been moved, it's been seconded to a deferral to our next Appropriations Committee hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone wish to be recorded no. That item 3B has been deferred. To the attorneys, any further unreadiness, any further items for discussion or consideration?
Nothing remains on your agenda,
Thank
Madam.
you so much. We are adjourned.
Department. A water service line is the pipe that connects your home to the public water main. The service line will typically enter your home at the exterior of the house through a hose bib or outdoor faucet connection, or through the foundation in an area that could be a crawl space, utility area, or other location. It is also typically less than 1 inch in diameter and has a shutoff valve at the point where it enters your home. It is highly possible that your exterior connection